excited for this discussion today. Now, for those of you that are new to Raising Alchemy, just quickly before we start. So Raising Alchemy is all about deepening the connection to the spiritual child. So both within ourselves, but also for our children. And it's really about allowing them to be sovereign beings, not raising them based on who we are or our experiences, good or bad, but just really allowing them a choice for their own potential, which is why I just love this discussion as well, with the DNA potential links here as well, which is amazing. Now I will read Acurda's bio, because it's amazing, and I'll just read it word for word. So you're a specialist in working with the multi-dimensional aspects of DNA. You teach people to access these codes in their holographic blueprints and recode them in order to live in the highest potential. It is your passion to teach people to heal their DNA and to show them how to clear destructive DNA patterns from their ancestral lineage, trauma, disease, and recode them for activation in alignment with their wholeness, soul light, mission, and purpose. And you work with the holographic body, sacred geometry, Akashic records, the crystalline grid system, and other multidimensional realms. You're leading programs on the transformation of the 144-strand DNA for the evolution of humanity and leaving a new generic lineage. So that's just incredible. Now, one of our Raising Alchemy, what we're about is also to bring concepts like this to awareness and a simple understanding of that often as well. Now, many people are probably familiar with the biological term of DNA, but the multidimensional side may be a little bit new to people. I know it's a little bit new to me. I've delved into it a little bit, but definitely by no means know too much about it. So I'm really excited for this learning for myself as well. I have tuned in to a couple of the DNA Summit talks that you've hosted and done yourself. So that's kind of the extent of my knowledge. So I'll hand over to you shortly. Now, I'm not sure if you want to, and I'll let you choose, if you want to kind of explain what we mean by multidimensional DNA, or it might be easier for you to start into how you got working with DNA yourself, and that might answer the same question. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Acurda Melchizedek, and I believe that my mission, my soul mission as I came to this planet, is working with DNA. And I believe in leaving a new genetic lineage of light for humanity. And what that means for me is clearing and recoding any type of trauma or patterns that we're holding in our DNA that are basically repeating patterns in our life. Okay. And I believe that we can clear those, we can recode them, we can set new intentions, because we are so very powerful. Our consciousness is creating everything, not only ourselves, but everything around us. We are so very powerful. And we are at this precipice now of being able to architect our own DNA, to truly go in and change the whole fabric, change all the stories, and completely rewrite a whole new lineage for humanity outside of these false constructs, outside of these false archetypal structures that we've been carrying for a millennia. And so in that, I believe that right now, as we're in this present moment and the elections are happening here for the US, and we've gone through this whole pandemic thing, is that we are being called to heal our lineage. We are being called to heal our DNA. We are being called to write war out of our DNA. Struggle, pain, lack, all of these low vibrational concepts that are not truths at all. We get to start rewriting and consciously choosing something different for ourselves, for the new human, for the new earth, and for all the beings that are starting to come in, right? All these new beings that are starting to come in, we get to change all of this so that we can even bring those beings in. Because for me, I was gifted when I came here. I saw things, I was constantly connected to beings, auric fields and all that kind of stuff. And I had no one who could see that or understand that, because I was surrounded by people who believed all the programming that we are not God, we're not something special, that our consciousness changes everything, that we can move mountains, that we can create, solar systems and planets with our consciousness. I didn't have that coming in. And to me, that was the real trauma. And it wasn't this whole like thing that we think that we're separated from God. That is not the truth. The trauma comes of coming here and not being met by love, and in a total dysfunction and a whole system, right, of falsity. That's the real pain. That's the real suffering. And then, just recently, this really interesting aspect came into my awareness, and part of that pain of separation that we think is separation is really the secrecy that has been happening on this planet for a millennia, the hiding of the truth of who we are through religious stuff, through government, through co-opting national sites or sacred sites, and basically taking all of this stuff and co-opting it, and not allowing us to see how long humans have been here or life has been here. We are totally misled about how old different sacred structures are, different pyramids, monolithic structures. Göbekli Tepe is like 300,000 years old, but they don't even want to own that. So that is a huge part of our separation that we think that we're having, is this secrecy of the truth of who we are. That's this pain. That's this not feeling like we don't belong, right? I mean, that's one level of it. But as we talk about all of this, and we're starting to see all of these falsities and all this crumbling of these old systems around us, and people are stepping up, light workers and just brave human beings stepping up and creating something new that is out of these structures, and the bravery and the light and the energy and the love and the compassion for humanity to completely walk away from old lifestyles and completely build something new out of different science, different physics, different institutional structures is so incredible. And for me, those are the people, we are the people who have done this work that we're talking about to usher in these new high vibrational souls, right? That can be met with complete love.
Absolutely. And I think, as part of that though, we have to allow ourselves to come in a place to be able to be there for them in that, right? Without all of our ancestral stuff coming up, and I find that I'm so acutely aware, and we've spoken about this briefly around how I am with my daughter, but I can see those patterns. I can observe them as they're happening, and it's very hard sometimes to kind of stop in that before it kind of the words come out or the action come out, or there's been moments where I'm like, man, that was my mother, and it's just a simple example, but it's so and on the flip side of that, I feel like I love how you talk about the separation, but often I see with some of the children now that are coming through that are a little bit older, it's not that there's not that separation there, but they're almost so in tune is that it's not about a difference of them being awake or not. They're already there. They don't even see the distinction of being different because that is who they are. But they slowly, I don't know, I feel like sometimes they eventually just get worn down, or something happens with the introduction, and the more they get immersed in society where they haven't had that support, which is what you've spoken about. And so therefore, that's almost like we wear them down. When I say we, like collectively general, the sort of, that's almost like they're worn down so much that eventually something changes and they lose that spark, or they just get worn down, or they're conformed, or they're, we are changing the way they're thinking away from who they were when they arrived. And, you know, as spiritual beings, I think we do feel a little bit lost when we get here, because it must, you know, it's quite a shock to come into such a dense world. I do believe that's changing, but it's, you know, and that's why this work, the work that you do, is just so incredibly important, because we need to start with us, you know, as the sovereign being, and then that lineage can start to be cleared for our children and through that birth process as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, so I've created, using the 12 strand template, I have basically like a template of experience for each strand of DNA that has 12 dimensions of access. And I'll start with the first 5. And, you know, the first one is really when we say that we want to know ourselves, right? And it's that spark that brings the spark into the womb. Okay. There is a stargate that we travel to, a quantum tunnel that we travel through, that is basically to the stargate, which is the womb of our mother. And in that, there's also the meeting of the egg and the sperm. And that's like the spark, and those two sparks create an open quantum tunnel for us to travel through. Okay. So as we come through, we basically come in and start organizing the different perspective of genetics that we're going to pull forward for our soul lessons. And lessons isn't the right word, our soul experiences, right? Because the reason that we would want to know ourselves is to expand our consciousness, right? Because we're part of an ever expanding universe, omniverse. And part of that is we are, our first mission is to be a witness for this, so that it can keep expanding. We can keep expanding. Everything can keep expanding. That is our number one primary, you know, mission. And then we have all these submissions, right? Of what's going to happen here, how this is going to play out, what incidents are going to help us embody our soul so divinely, and be the most truth of our divine connection with love and compassion and creation as a universal human. And that's not just creating for us, but it's creating for something so much larger. And so as we come in, we start taking the genetics, okay, just the straight, simple genetics. And that is, you know, chemicals, bases, you know, chromosomes, and right. We start organizing these genetics. And then in the genetics, there's vibrations, right? Frequencies of stories, ancestral stories, right? And so as our soul comes in with our soul information, we basically start matching stories, okay? And so we bring another strand of DNA to life, and we start picking and choosing, right, these stories, because they're already blueprints there that we can easily start to manifest. We're looking for energy, right? We're creating energy. We're pulling things to create the physicality of ourself, okay? And then we get into the third strand, which is past lives, and we start collecting all of our, we'll say, high resonant lives that we want to pull forward. So now we're starting to have this like 3-dimensional, right? Genetics, pasts, right? And we're bringing them together, so our soul starts organizing. And then we start to bring in the purity of this incarnation soul experience, right? What we're coming here for. And so this starts to create a cube of intentionality for the truth of this physical incarnation. And so these 4 points, we'll say, this cube holds our, we'll say, is the container for our cell, our chromosome to really start flourishing, right? And if you know anything about sacred geometry and the cube and the sphere, you know, these are the foundations, masculine and feminine, for us to have a physical structure, okay? Mm-hmm. And so in order for us to, we'll say, have these experiences, we're bringing these layers of energetic forms to the picture. And this is why I love to talk about holographic structures, right? Is because these are basically like holographic overlays over us, right? So that people can see us clearly who can't see energy. It is the physicality of us, okay? But as we start moving into light and we start clearing all of these things, these densities out, we start to become more light. We start to become more of our truth. Our holographic structure starts shifting into different timelines. And I'm not quite sure if your audience understands like the morphing timelines, or if they've experienced like 3-dimension, 5-dimension, and back to 3-dimension, and they've had all these skips around. This is our consciousness basically in density that we're tuning into, okay? And so this becomes much easier to understand when you take a look at each strand of DNA, kind of like a diamond or a crystal, right? And your soul light is basically moving through that strand of DNA, organizing everything. And so as this light is moving through, and if you picture a crystal or a prism, when it's clear and light shines in, the prism is clear. You get all these beautiful fractals of rainbows, right? Our clear light, our source light creates different vibrational qualities of color and frequency, okay, around us. This is part of how we are creating, in a complex way, our holographic structures, okay, our chakral system, everything, cells. But when we have density, when we're carrying programs and patterns, they have a dense frequency to them. And if you want to get into waves and all that stuff, I will in a second, has a dense frequency to it. And so when the light starts to shine through the crystal or the prism, what it does, sometimes it won't be able to shine through depending on the quality, right, of like a diamond or a crystal. But for the most part, the light shines through and it creates all of these different dark colored fractals everywhere. That is basically what is happening in our DNA with these patterns and programs. Okay. And so what I've done is I've created 64 programs with this 12-strand template, where you can pull a program forward like sabotage, sacrifice, crucifixion, victim, perpetrator. There's all these levels of programs, but basically I believe that they're from our human experience, false human experiences, our false personality experiences, and even our false soul experiences and our false ascension experiences. And so all of these kind of have, we'll say, traps along the way. And a trap is something where you basically give your power away or lose your power in some way and give it to something else. And you believe that whatever this other thing is more important to you or is a truth for you, right? And so you give your power away. You believe that you're less than this thing. We do this all the time. I mean, institutions are built on this. If you look at the judicial system, the law system, right? The legal system is basically, it's like two people can't come to a mutual agreement. And so what do? They take all their energy and they hand it over to other people to decide their fate. Right?
Incredible, isn't it? When you look at it like this.
We've created a whole energetic entity, right, for this. And we do this all the time. We do this in school systems, right? We've created a life where we can't even educate our own children, and we send them to a whole far structure, and we basically give all our power away, right? And for me, and I'm a mother, my daughter is 25 years old. The biggest mistake that I ever made was public education. We're still defragging my daughter from this whole system. And this has been the plague in her adult life. Because like you said, when we send kids to school and we come in with all this like beautiful, vibrant energy, we stick them in a classroom for 8 hours a day, like in a chair. In a chair. Like that is torturous. That is torturous. And I'm so thrilled that we're in this place right now where people are, homeschooling their kids, and they're getting to see what it's like for a child to sit there for 8 hours a day in a chair, and it is torture. It is torture.
That's just not natural, is it? Like,
Not
I mean, I
natural.
can't sit still for more than an hour myself, like
Right.
it's hard,
And
let
then,
alone a
and then when
child.
kids
Yeah.
can't sit still, we tell them they have ADD, blah, 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 blah. And we have all these lettered kids, and it's, to me, these kids are kids where their minds are so open and they have so much thought pouring through. They should be fully catered to and allowed to move and allowed to express themselves. I mean, half of the world is walking around like zombies because they've learned that they have to be contained all the time in a chair or still or whatever. We are cutting off our source energy, our light, our God constantly, our soul constantly. And we're wondering why we're exhausted all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just those spaces are really, really close to my heart. Like, I just would love to see more of them, just really, and I understand, it's hard. I do understand, with parents, often they feel that's their only option, and it's such a chain of events, and children go to school, and
I get it.
And I find myself in a balance of and torn there as well, because I co-parent, and we've spoken about this as well, with someone that may not be as within the same type of perspective as what I have. Fantastic father, but we just have different ideals, and that's sometimes you just need to find that balance in between. But it's hard, I get pangs of anxiety over having sometimes to meet in the middle with some of those decisions, where I'd prefer to be a really alternative, holistic approach. And then, it really does wind me up a little bit, but I feel that things are changing. I think we're still a little way away from all of that really making a big impact, but there's steps being taken, and that's bringing hope to people. And there's, as you say, there's so much more of an awareness of that homeschooling and people understanding.
Absolutely. And we, trust me, I get it. I sent my kid to public school because I was a young mother, and I at that period of time I had never even heard of homeschool before. This was 25 years ago, and I totally get that, and more options are coming. But what we get to do, and this is the real call, going back to genetics, is we get to clear and recode all of these things that we've been taught, right? And we have an opportunity to create something new. And this, I believe this first starts with understanding that you're bringing a soul into this world. You're not having children to fulfill your life. You're not, to be your testament to the world, or for somebody to take care of you when you're older. No, first we get to change that when people have children, they're ushering in a soul into this realm. So we get to start thinking differently about having children in the first place. You're bringing a soul. You're bringing God into this realm. You get to prepare for that. You get to clear and recode your DNA. You get to do your healing first. When you want to bring in a child, right? When you're ready to bring in this soul, you and another person are ready to bring in this soul, to help facilitate this soul. That we have like sacred lovemaking, right? This is a ceremony. This is a ceremony.
I love that.
In a soul.
Yeah.
It's not sex. It's not, come on, it's fertility time. It's like this is a whole, you're ushering in an aspect of God. Treat it sacred. It is time to start treating ourselves and birth sacred again.
100%. I just love that so much.
And then when we do that, right, when that starts to change inside of ourselves, that's the seed for the center of the mass creation seed of a whole new way that we look at bringing children in. And that if we're bringing in God, we only want the best for God, for this soul. And that we create that, we start to create that. We should have the ability in this life to have space to create that for these souls. New ways of learning where they have all kinds of they're able to experiment with elements like crystals and water and growing food and animals and, you know, this beautiful analog nature.
Excellent.
Of discovering themselves instead of, you know, I can remember learning math at such a young age and like not even understanding it. My brain was not even ready for it. And I love Rudolf Steiner. I love some of his methods. You know, when kids learn the alphabet at an age where the brain is developed cognitively enough to understand this, and it is fully developed with the mouth and the body, is that, you know, they learn the letters with the body, so they have a muscle memory to go along with that.
Yeah.
They have several steps in superconscious actualization in the body for this awareness, for language. And it's not just a speaking language, your whole body gets to vibrate with this language.
Yeah.
When we're speaking, you have the opportunity to speak life into people, or you have the ability to cut them down and make them sick. And we have so many generations who they don't know that.
But they've been taught that as well, not necessarily, you know, through just observation. It's just, you know, it starts. And, you know, I'm really, really curious. So, you know, you're talking about the, you know, the vortex or the light coming through and the experience of those 4 points of the DNA strands. And so the conscious being that is pulling those strands in, is their awareness expanding to their parents with what is available with their ancestral backlog, as well as their past life experiences, which is why the parents, you know, like if you were to go think about having a baby and bringing it in, as you say, about that sacred experience, obviously the more work we can do on ourselves, that child or that conscious being that is being born, that God being that is being born, has more of a pure availability of those strands, would you say, as they're coming into reality?
Absolutely. It's like if we think about just a soul being in utero, right? And just think about the umbilical cord, right? What we're eating, right, is the food for the baby, is the food for that soul. Now we can either eat things that have more light in them, or we can eat things that are junk and have toxins in them, right? And so it's the exact same way through the strands of DNA in our experiences. Do we want to leave DNA that has all kinds of threads of beautiful light, or do we want to leave distortion and toxins and degradation, fear, lack? You know, these are, it's
That's
really
a great analogy. I love that about the
exact same thing.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
We get to choose at every level. We get to choose.
That's incredible. Can you speak a little bit around like what can we do now? So you talked about your program, and you know, so as I change my DNA you know, my multidimensional DNA, or as a person, my own sovereign person, I start working with that, how does that energetically transform or transmute for my daughter with the DNA and the genetics now versus pregnancy?
Well, I'll share a direct experience that I had through my own lineage. And you know, I knew 15 years ago that I was to come here and heal my lineage. And my grandmother from my mom's side died of colon cancer when I was probably about 1.5 years old. I never really got to know my grandmother. I have one really very clear memory of her that I hold in my heart. And pretty much my mom, her whole life, had like polyps all the time in her stomach, right? And a lot of like dysfunction there. So they would have to do constant tests all the time and do the scrapings and, like, you know, get in there and make sure the polyps weren't cancerous or whatever. And when I really started working with DNA, I started to get to the core issues of the programs that were the stress, right, for all the whole digestive tract. And it was like all these things about not being nourished. And you know, there are different, like one program can have like sub programs too, right? So it may look like one thing, but on another level, for my grandmother, it was not really being nourished. She was adopted, right? So she never really knew her roots. You know, she, you know, name change. She was raised by people she didn't know, but she was also raised in the Depression. So there was like these levels of not being nourished for her that really created this. And so when I started working through all of this stuff, is I got to heal that and then kind of look at like what my mom's issues were in that whole thing. And then for me, as those started to clear, what I did is I made sure that I was energetically constantly clean, like doing the cleaning, right? Constantly cleaning. I've done a lot of fasting. I don't eat gluten. My diet is pretty impeccable, right? And that was my end. And now my daughter's never had a problem. She's never had digestive issues or, you know, any of that stuff. So that was a direct healing through the generations through this work.
Incredible.
And I mean, there's so much more, but that really is like shows the whole complexity of what you can do when you really work with your DNA.
That is just, yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I just love that so much. My mind's like, oh, I'm trying to absorb all of this.
And then also, I just want to say this too, on like a softer level of that. When we heal our own stuff, we're happy, we're joyous, we're creative, we're really being the truth of who we are. And then when we share that with our children, that shows them a level of life that's the standard. Like you being a happy, joyous human being, creative, loving, good partnerships, friends, that's the standard. That's their norm.
Incredible.
Or you can show them something different.
So just imagine if this was taught in schools, you know, like part of the curriculum was, you know, not schools and, you know, but just a space where you could go and learn about your DNA healing as a, you know, and start exploring that as a 7-year-old or something. Like, how incredible would that be?
Well, I just started coming down in the last few months that we're on our way to Baja, Mexico now to look for some land to actually build a center for DNA. And for me, there's some aspects around DNA that first I'd like to change. And so DNA, I want to change that whole thing to not chemicals, but to divine natural access. Okay. And that DNA is really our master ancestor. It is everything. We can truly, if you want to get to the multidimensional parts of DNA, we have multidimensional aspect through the light in our DNA at different high vibrational frequencies. And we have the ability, as one of our superpowers, as our divine birthright gifts, you know, many people know about the Akashic records, that we can access any human stories, right, forward and back through our DNA. And that as we start to really evolve here, and when we talk about the ascension process, it is not only an ascension, it is an ascension of our super consciousness, but it is understanding our DNA as our master ancestor, as God, as organizing all the light and creation around us. It is not just DNA. And so we get to stop looking at DNA from this like false science perspective that is just like, oh, it's acids and bases and chromosomes and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But okay, well, they've mapped out the whole genome and they've mapped about 3% of it. So what is the other 97%?
It's huge, right? It's a big thing.
When has nature ever made a 97% error? So if we look at DNA in a more quantum level as light, we have access to so much information. We start to have new visions of what is possible. And I believe that DNA is holding, right, the infiniteness of who we are. Every possibility forward and back. You can change everything in the past and in the future in this now movement of super consciousness with the embodiment of your soul through DNA. I truly believe that. I have witnessed it.
And it makes sense for me too, just, you know, from what you've explained, and, you know, as I'm thinking as we're talking of that, you know, we are God beings, you know, that spark, or that conscious spark that's born, that's the DNA, right? That's the multidimensional DNA sparking within the human form, right? And so it makes sense, really. It's just, I mean, it blows my mind to think about all of that, but we're scratching the surface with what we know. I'd imagine, like, you're obviously delving a lot deeper into that.
And so for me, I really want to create this type of, you know, divine, natural access womb, right? So that people can experience this and have their own quantum experiences, because we are different. Our consciousness is different, right? And we came to experience different things, and we're organizing ourselves in this way. But what if all of these, you know, geometries that are in different spectrums of light, that are the fabric of our DNA, all coming together? What if every being comes from this exact same foundation, this 12 template strand DNA, right? Which I believe are spectrums of light that are the archangels, as light, not as like a representation of people, but as light. These are the templates that we're moving through, that are actualizing us through 12 dimensions.
Oh, yeah.
What if every being is all of this in different quantum forms and in different organizations of geometry and light? This is what I mean. Like, we've got to stop looking at DNA like a bunch of chemicals and bases and chromosomes. It is one small, tiny portion of the truth of who we are.
Yeah, I love that. That's incredible. You're stretching my perspective here. I love it. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm so, like, that's awesome that you're going to buy some land and look at some land and start formulating.
And we want to have children there. We want to have a center of what we're calling mass creation. And each part has this beautiful dome that's kind of like a womb for ascension. and it's just the ascension of consciousness. And so we want to have a water lab, right? And we want to have a crystal lab, and we want to have a genetics lab, and we want to have so that we have the opportunity to give souls that so that we can provide souls an opportunity to play with earth, like the magic of earth.
That's
I mean,
beautiful.
why we've come here and we've been so disconnected. It's like we've told kids this whole false story of what earth even is. And of course, like, you know, I'm going back to my own story. It's like, why would I want to be here? There was nobody talked about the fairies. Nobody talked about the crystal people, or the, you know, or that you could talk to animals, or there was just none of those divine right gifts did we ever set at kids' feet, at these souls' feet, and said, go wild.
Yeah.
Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
You know? No, we go around saying, you can't do that, you can't do that. No, you need to behave like this. No, you need to sit in that chair. No, blah, blah. Like, that's what we've done.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we can do better.
We can totally do better. And, you know, I'm starting to see that change. And yeah, I mean, I can only go off the observation of my daughter, but there was the most amazing rainbow outside our window last night. And the whole time she just stood at the rainbow jumping around, you know, she's 4 going, the unicorns, no, the unicorns, you know, and but I was just in complete joy watching her, you know, like she was just so excited that the unicorns had come and they'd made the rainbow, and she understands, you know, as well that, you know, the light and the rain and the sun, and she believes they all work together, and it's just like that's how it should be, right? Like
they do all work together.
Yeah,
they are, like that is her innate wisdom of soul, of soul understanding. You know,
absolutely. And it's just incredible, you know. And I've heard, you know, other mums tell me stories where, you know, they've literally overheard, you know, parents turn around and say to their children, you know, oh, stop being so stupid, you know, there's no such thing as fairies, and blah, 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 blah. And I know where it comes from, and it's not a judgment, you know, from an observation perspective, but it's just, you know, like it breaks my heart, you know. I just think that even just the magic of it,
regardless if these things are real or not,
exactly,
there is a magic in curiosity that we are crushing. And just imagine if a person, a soul that comes here, can have a full life of this beautiful magical curiosity, on that innocence, like where would we be as a society?
Exactly.
Like what would we be capable of if we just looked at everything with this beautiful awe of like, wow, I wonder what trees are going to talk to me, or even working with each other, or any type of like free energy that we're building, or, you know, where would we be right now if
amazing,
we've all been able to keep that intact? Where would we be as a human species?
And it's now that we need to change that for our children, you know, like, and it's hard, still hard in places now. Like I can acknowledge that for people and myself. Like it's still, you know, there's still this resistance that we're going up against. You know, I don't like talking about, you know, society, it's a bit overused, but, you know, like it's still this, we're trying to break through it ourselves. And yeah, it's, yeah, I mean, all we can do is just lay that foundation for children that are here in the best possible way, you know, and it's, yeah.
And every single parent gets to do what feels right and true and best for them and their child. Yeah. And we're all learning together.
Exactly. It's not about perfection. I'm really big on that as well. You know, it's about trying and learning, and you know, I've been really stepping into how much joy our children are born with, but just how much also that whole, you know, and I know there needs to be some agreements there, you know, to help them navigate things. But, you know, and I can't remember whether we spoke of this when we caught up, but it was, you know, recently my daughter's been coming out in these most elaborate costume, like she gets up in the morning and she's in masks and fairy dresses and she's got layers on, and she's coming out in the most, like, she's literally waking up in pure joy and fun, and she just wants to, you know, have fun. And she'll come out with pillows and she'll be like, pillow fight, like she's just jumped out of bed. And I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, at what point are we told, you know, like, stop having fun, stop living in that joy, stop, you know, just that whole essence. She's just so free. And I just, you know, she walks out the door like that, and it's just, there's so much hope for me there when I see that of just allowing and letting be, and I can see that shift happening. I can feel it, and it also, I just feel so much towards ourselves and what we've been through, to have that kind of squeezed out of us along the way, you know. And as, you know, as a parent now and being older, I'm trying to rediscover and find that joy again, you know, and step into that more and stop being so serious all the time. And, you know,
we can ask ourselves, you know, when did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
When was that moment? And I'm telling you right now, most people who are walking around with chronic pain, that is the spot where that got snuffed out. That is the spot that they're holding, and they're holding so much density around, it is not safe to be me. I can't be my truth.
That is it, the safety, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they've created density and tissue and all kinds of physical stuff around that one spot. And there's one defining moment. It usually happens in childhood. Mm-hmm. And then it takes some years, and then they have a chronic cycle somewhere in their body of pain most of their life. That's the moment it got snuffed out. And that's the moment that we can rewrite.
Yeah, it's amazing. Where do people start? Start
with DNA work?
Yeah, where do they start with this? If someone's really interested, and I know you've got an amazing free activation, which I posted the link onto this post, so thank you very much for that. But where do they start with wanting to do more, or starting to investigate what this means for them, or what they might be able to start with themselves?
Well, I'm a big proponent, and everybody gets to do their own research, right? Because we all have different ways that work for us, and it's important to know those ways and to find those people who speak your language, right? Who make sense to you, who, like, you get in their field and the words that they're speaking, right, resonate inside of you. That's so important, because you really trust those people, and you're able to go deep with them. And I invite everybody to go to the landing page and access the ancestral clearing of the first 2 strands, so that they can have an experience of the way that I'm working with DNA. And if that calls to them, if they feel that that's profound and they had that experience, then we can go into a deeper conversation about what that looks like for them. You know, what a DNA clearing and recoding session could look like for them. And that we would have a conversation about how this work could serve them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But that's really important. And trust me, I'm not the only person doing DNA work here on this planet at this time. So I work with programs, pull the programs forward, we rewrite and recode, and I use different qualities and spectrums of light and geometry and intention to recode the whole fabric of the strand of DNA. That's my way. But I mean, other people work in other ways.
Yeah.
And just to start doing their own research of what is right and true for them.
Yeah, what resonates with them and how they feel into that. Now you have another DNA summit coming up, is that right? Or just It's started?
No, so I probably will do the fourth DNA summit. Right now, we're in the second month of the holographic human from cell to soul course, which is a 6-month deep dive into the mastery of energetics with DNA. That's really understanding the 12-strand template and being able to recreate your whole 12-strand with light and geometry and intention, with 12-dimensional access. And then when that finishes, I will do another series, which will be the fourth DNA series. And right now we're on the road, traveling to Baja, and we have in works a small production of people that we're meeting along the way, of those people who are really leading like the new human and the new earth in different ways. Awesome. It is so important for me to highlight these souls and to just honor them for the work that they're doing, because we all know the visionaries have been attacked a lot, and to all the different waivers that have been here to bring in certain waves of consciousness for humanity have been attacked a lot. And it is time, and it is my honor to showcase them in their glory and to give them a platform to bring in new types of research. And there is so much stuff being created all over the globe right now, new light technologies for humanity on all levels, energy, finances, crystals, and different types of healing beds, and I mean, you name it. It's all, people have it, and now we just need to give them a platform.
Yeah, amazing.
To speak it out into an existence for people and let them know that they have options.
Yeah, they have choice. I love this. We're really stepping into an exciting realm now, right? It's yeah, I love that. I'll look forward to listening to some of those. Now, people can also, they can re-listen to the past DNA summits, is that right? Because I found those really helpful, some of the ones I've listened to, just for, again, different perspective and different people's opinions and different approaches.
So if they would like to, the series is just for purchase. And so this is kind of how I run my things, is I open it up, but it's important that we call in the right people. It's important that people understand the type of community that they're playing in, right? And that they get to choose if they want to be a part of it. And so, like, when I do my programs, I have basically like connection calls with people all the time to see who is the right person for us to work together.
Nice.
Right? And that's important. So a lot of my information just isn't out there. It's not no YouTube channel or any of that. I protect my stuff. I have it, like, if you want to be a part of it, you've got to press a button to be a part of it. You've got to know consciously that you're connecting to that. That's important, right? Because otherwise our messaging gets diluted, and that's how people start getting attacked. It's not a big audience, it's the quality of the souls that you're connecting with. And so I'm kind of private about a lot of stuff. And if people want to contact me and they want more information or sessions or whatever, we've got to have a conversation first. Like, we've got to start knowing each other, because this spiritual drive-bys that people are doing and just throwing their energy out at people, whether they like or dislike something, it's got to stop. We're in a moment of co-facilitation of energy, and we get to start understanding that.
Yeah, I like that co-facilitation aspect. Yeah.
So no more spiritual drive-bys of things. you know.
There's a lot of that though as well, though, right? Yeah.
There is, and I want no part of it. And so, you know, I have the way that I do things, and we're for me, I don't like emails. I make calls with people. We get on and we have calls so that we can be in each other's resonance in our hearts and know if we're really meant to work together. I have tons of clients. I'm not looking for new clients. I'm looking for those people who want to heal their genetics, who know that they came here to do this work, that they're ready to leave a new lineage of light for humanity. Like all the other stuff doesn't interest me. So there's a certain person I'm looking for, a certain soul that I'm looking for. The rest of it's a waste of my time. But when we see each other, we know.
We do. It's beautiful.
They can contact me at Acurda, ACURDA 1212 at gmail.com or Acurda at livingyourdna.com. And then if they opt in for the ancestral clearing, they'll be a part of one community that I'm in. I'm also on the Mighty Networks under the DNA code, which is, I really love that. It's a platform I purchased, so it's very clear. There's no advertising, it's just us, it's, you know, and you have to be invited in.
I'm on that platform with you in there, and I love the Mighty Networks. I'm really resonating with it. Like, I really enjoy it for that. And it's got a nice app and it looks really nice on the computer, you know, like just to navigate through.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I house all my courses there that you can house, and like you can set up different communities, you know, and you can make that part like a private group, and then everybody in that group has the ability to connect and chat and, you know, and be in time with each other. And it's just so, I love it. I love it. It's the best platform I've found.
Yes,
it feels so nice and clean.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
I just hope that I've inspired people to look at DNA in a whole new way, and that DNA is your divine natural access to your soul, to source, to God, and that it's our master ancestor, and it gets to be honored, and it gets to be cared for and cultivated and architected. And I just hope that I've really inspired everyone to just take a new look at DNA at a more quantum perspective of life.
I feel that you really have. You definitely have for me. So thank you so much. I might just have a quick see if there's any questions. No direct questions. That's cool. So thank you so much. I'm just checking here. So I have posted, or will post the link to Acurda's. You've got a free gift, which is the Ancestral Recoding through your multidimensional DNA. So there's a link for that on this post, and I'll also pop up your the website and the two of the Facebook options there as well, so that people can connect with you if they feel that that's something that they would like to do. And thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your road trip and the RV and going to see the land and everything else that you're doing.
Thank you. And make sure that you tag me on the link so that I can start posting it out. And it's been such a pleasure to be here and have this conversation.
So yeah, me too.
To talk about the new genetic lineage of light for humanity that I see so very clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. And thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.